The first time William stepped into Cynthia's life, he didn't walk in like a storm. No, he arrived like a quiet need, wounded, emotionally scattered, and soft-spoken. Cynthia wasn't looking for love. Not the kind that needed fixing anyway. But some people don't knock. They fall into your hands, broken, and make you forget you weren't supposed to hold them. That was William. They met at a support group for people coping with grief. Cynthia had lost her sister in a car accident a year ago. William had just gone through a divorce. His wife had left him for another man, taking their son with her to another state. He said it casually, like it didn't ache. But the way his eyes searched the floor when he spoke, Cynthia knew he was bleeding. At first, their connection wasn't romantic. They'd meet after group sessions for coffee, sometimes just to sit in silence. William talked, and Cynthia listened. He had a way of telling stories that made people lean in closer, like they were sacred truths. And he'd smile at Cynthia, like she was the only one who didn't flinch when he unraveled. Weeks turned into months, and that blurry line between friendship and something more began to sharpen. William started showing up at her door without calling, with some excuse. He brought her a book he thought she'd like, or he was in the neighborhood. He wasn't. One night, it rained so hard, the streets looked like mirrors. William showed up, soaked and shivering, saying he couldn't be alone. Cynthia let him in, and that night, the air between them cracked open. They didn't speak of it the next morning, but after that, he started staying over. Clothes in her closet, toothbrush next to hers, his arm around her waist in sleep like it had always belonged there. She never asked him to define it. He'd say things like, "You make me feel like I can breathe again," or, "I don't know what I'd do without you." He called her his healing place. Cynthia believed him. She poured herself into him, her time, her patience, her love. She helped him write letters to his son. She held him through nightmares. She edited his resume and even coached him before job interviews. William started standing straighter, laughing more, dressing sharper. It felt good to watch him heal, until it didn't. He started to shift. It was slow at first, like a tide pulling back. He stopped staying over as much. He missed calls, replied with one-word texts. Cynthia thought maybe he was just busy with the new job he landed, one she helped him prep for, one where he met Susan. Cynthia only found out about Susan by accident. William left his phone unlocked on the kitchen counter and a message popped up. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." The bubble said it all. The tone, the intimacy. It was not platonic. She didn't cry. Her hands shook. Yes, her chest felt like it was caving in. But she didn't cry. When he came back from work, she didn't scream. She didn't throw his things. She didn't even tell him she knew. She let him talk about his long day, made him dinner, smiled at him across the table, like her world wasn't burning. But she didn't sleep that night. By morning, she had a spreadsheet. Dates, expenses, emotional labor, therapy hours, Uber rides, groceries, job applications she helped with, hours spent helping him practice for interviews, every act of care she had given him like a gift. And then she added a final row invoice, total $4,682.50. When he woke up, she handed him the paper with a soft smile. "What's this?" he asked. "An invoice," she replied. "You used me to heal. I gave you everything. Now that you're whole, you're leaving. I won't cry. I'm just collecting what I'm owed." His face twisted between confusion and shame. "Cynthia, come on. It wasn't like that." She stared him down. It was exactly like that. His mouth opened, then closed, and with nothing else to say, William picked up his keys and walked out. again. But this time, she didn't follow. Cynthia didn't expect him to pay. That wasn't the point. She knew William. He'd scoff at the invoice, maybe mock it with that half smile he used when he didn't want to admit he was wrong. He'd show it to someone like Susan and turn it into a joke. But Cynthia wasn't writing it for him. She wrote it for herself. To name what she gave. To put value on the love he used like a crutch. Then tossed aside once he could walk again. The next few days were quiet. William didn't call, didn't text. Cynthia didn't block him. She didn't need to. She knew silence was its own answer. What stung more was how hollow the apartment felt. His scent still clung to her sheets. His socks were still in the dryer. She stared at the framed photo of them at the lake. His arms slung over her shoulders. Her smile frozen in a lie. She took it down and stuffed it in the drawer. Cynthia's best friend Susan, different Susan, showed up with wine and sharp eyes. "Tell me you didn't let him get off easy," she said, pouring into their chipped glasses. "I invoiced him," Cynthia said flatly. Susan blinked. "You what?" Cynthia showed her the paper. At first Susan laughed, hard. But then she fell silent, rereading the numbers. "Damn, you really did the math." "I had to. I needed to see it all. What I gave." Susan leaned back on the couch. Eyebrows raised. "You know he's probably out there painting you as the crazy one." "I know," Cynthia said. "Let him. The worst part about heartbreak isn't always the pain. It's the way it makes you question your own kindness." Cynthia caught herself wondering if she was too available, too patient, too forgiving. Did she see the red flags and ignore them? Probably. But love doesn't feel like a trap until the door slams shut. And William, he played the victim so well. He'd say, "You knew I was broken." And she did. But she didn't expect to be the glue he'd scrape off once he was whole. A week passed before he messaged her. It was a voice note. She debated for 2 hours before playing it. "Cynthia, look, I've been thinking. I didn't handle things right. I guess I just didn't know how to close that chapter. I'm not good with endings. You were important. You helped me more than you know. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Susan and it happened. I didn't plan it. I never meant to use you." Cynthia stared at her phone. She played the message again, slower. No mention of paying the invoice. No ownership. Just vague apologies. She didn't reply. She forwarded the voice note to Susan. Her friend responded instantly. "Girl, that's a man who's sorry he got caught. Not sorry he did it." Cynthia exhaled sharply through her nose. A bitter laugh. Susan always called things by their real names. Later that night, she passed by the cafe where she and William used to meet after group therapy. She paused. The lights inside were warm. Humming? She almost walked in, but instead, she kept walking, her coat wrapped tight, heart still soft, but no longer open. 2 blocks down, she saw Thomas. They'd met once before, at one of the early grief sessions. He was quiet, tall, with a tired gentleness in his eyes. He'd disappeared from the group after a few meetings. Now he stood there, holding a coffee, and staring at the snow falling like ash around them. Their eyes met. "Hey," she said, stopping. He smiled. "Didn't expect to see you here." Same. She didn't plan to talk long. Just a nod, a greeting. But something in the way he stood, like he still carried his pain, but wasn't trying to hand it off to anyone, made her pause. "You want to walk?" he asked. She nodded. And they did. Not as a beginning, not yet, but not as a woman broken either. Just 2 people walking in the cold. Not trying to fix each other, just sharing the silence. Their walk didn't mean anything at first. Cynthia wasn't looking to fill a hole. She just finally realized that some parts of her didn't need replacing, just time. But there was something easy about being next to Thomas. He didn't talk too much, didn't push her to open up. He didn't ask about William, and she didn't ask about why he stopped coming to the support group. Their steps matched in rhythm, like they'd done this before in some other life. The wind bit at their cheeks, but neither of them hurried. They ended up at a small bench near the river. The water moved slow, thick with slush and early ice. Cynthia sat, pulling her scarf tighter. Thomas offered her the rest of his coffee, and she took it without hesitation. "You still go to the group?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not lately. Too many people trying to be strong out loud." "I needed to be quiet for a while." He nodded, like he understood. "I stopped going after my dad passed. Felt like I didn't belong there anymore, like grief had an expiration date or something." She looked at him, eyebrows raised. "That's exactly how I felt." They laughed lightly, and in that moment, something shifted. Not romantic, not yet, but honest. And that was enough. They kept walking every few nights. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they didn't. He told her about his dad, about how he was the one who held the family together. After he died, everything cracked. Thomas moved out of the family home because the silence felt louder than grief itself. He wasn't healing, just surviving. Cynthia didn't rush to share her story, but slowly, she did. About William, about how it started sweet and turned sour without ever being cruel. It was like, "I wasn't a person to him," she said one night. "I was more like a phase, a warm bed, a place to rest." Thomas didn't say anything, but the way he looked at her said everything. Like she was real, like he saw the weight behind her words and didn't flinch. Meanwhile, William wasn't done trying. He started texting again. First little things. "Hope you're well," or "Saw something that reminded me of you." Then guilt-flavored lines. "I miss talking to you," and "I know I messed up." Cynthia didn't answer. She kept the messages though, each one a reminder of why she left. But when he called one night, she picked up without meaning to. "Cynthia," he said, voice low, like he thought she might hang up. She didn't. "I read the invoice again," he said. "It's not about the money, is it?" She leaned back on her couch, eyes on the ceiling. "No, William, it never was." A pause. "I was wrong. About everything. Susan. It's not what I thought. I miss you." There it was, the soft attempt to rewind, the unspoken plea. "Come fix me again." Cynthia almost laughed. Not out of cruelty, just disbelief. He really thought love was a revolving door. Break, leave, come back, repeat. She spoke slowly. "You don't miss me. You miss what I did for you. There's a difference." William went quiet. That silence used to sting. Now it just felt empty. "I hope you heal," she said. "But you don't get to use me as the place you do it again." And she hung up. Her hand shook a little, not from doubt, but from closure. Real, raw closure. The kind that doesn't come from shouting matches or dramatic goodbyes, but from clarity. She didn't tell Thomas about the call. Not because she was hiding anything, but because it didn't matter anymore. William wasn't the story. He was just a chapter she had finally turned the page on. The next time she met Thomas at the bench, he brought her a small thermos of hot chocolate and said nothing. She smiled and took it, brushing his hand lightly. That night, when they walked by the river, she found herself telling him about her sister, the accident, the way everything changed after. And for the first time in a long time, she cried. Not because she was falling apart, but because she finally felt safe enough to let it out. Thomas didn't say a word. He just kept walking beside her, steady and warm, like a lighthouse in a storm. And, for the first time in months, Cynthia felt the ice inside her starting to melt. Winter didn't leave quickly. It lingered, stubborn and bitter, like pain that overstays its welcome. But Cynthia no longer woke up dreading the day. Her mornings had changed. Still quiet, still slow, but lighter somehow. She still worked. The same job, kept the same routines, drank the same awful instant coffee. Only now, she didn't carry William in her chest like a stone. One afternoon, she passed by the bookstore William used to pretend to love. He once told her he liked the smell of books more than reading them. Back then, she thought it was charming. Now it just sounded empty. She didn't go inside. She didn't need nostalgia tugging at her ankles. Instead, she met Thomas for lunch at a tiny Korean spot tucked into the corner of an alleyway. He'd found it by accident, and that somehow made it more perfect. The place smelled like garlic and broth and something familiar. They sat in the back booth, and the woman running the place didn't ask for their order, just smiled like she already knew what they needed. Over steaming bowls, Thomas finally brought up something they'd both been tiptoeing around. "I've been thinking," he said, using his spoon more to stall than to eat. "We've been walking for weeks now." She nodded slowly, blowing gently on her spoonful. "Yeah. I like you," he said. "Not just in that we understand each other way, but real like. And I know you're still healing, and I'm not asking for anything rushed. I just didn't want to keep it in." He didn't look up when he said it. He stared into his bowl, like the answer might be floating there between bits of seaweed and tofu. Cynthia froze, just for a second, not out of fear, but recognition. It had been a long time since someone liked her without needing her first. William needed her, and when he didn't anymore, he left. But Thomas wasn't broken. He didn't need fixing. He just wanted to sit across from her and share a meal. She reached across the table and placed her hand on his. "I like you too," she said. "But slow is good. Let's keep walking." He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Later that week, Cynthia finally cleared out the last of William's things. A single drawer still held some of his forgotten junk. Charges, old receipts, a hoodie she used to wear more than he did. She packed it all in a small box and taped it shut. No note, no drama. She dropped it at his apartment building, left it with the front desk, and didn't wait. When she walked out, the sky looked less like winter and more like something waking up. That strange blue haze just before spring. Susan called her that evening, laughing into the phone. "Guess who I just saw on Bumble?" Cynthia smirked. "Oh no, don't tell me." "Oh yes. Your emotionally stunted ex-boyfriend. His profile says, healed, grounded, looking for someone real." Girl, I nearly threw my phone across the room. Cynthia laughed. Not a bitter one, but real. "Sounds about right. He probably recycled our conversations into pickup lines. Probably invoiced someone else's heart by now," Susan added, giggling. But Cynthia wasn't mad. Not anymore. William had taken what he wanted from her love, yes. But he didn't break her. He sharpened her. He reminded her that not everyone who needs you deserves you. That night, Thomas texted her. "Tomorrow, wok and dumplings," she replied. "Only if you bring that terrible hot chocolate again." She stared at the screen a little longer, then locked her phone and lay back on the couch. Her heart was quiet, calm, no longer doing the anxious dance of someone hoping to be enough. She didn't feel owed. She didn't feel bitter. She just felt free. And maybe that was the most expensive thing she'd ever bought. With time, tears, and patience. but it was worth every cent she'd never be paid back. The weather finally began to shift, like the city itself was letting out a long, cold breath. Trees that once stood stiff and bare started to blur at the edges with the first hints of green. The sidewalks were still wet from melted snow, but Cynthia found herself wearing lighter coats and lighter thoughts. She met Thomas more frequently now. They didn't call it dating. No pressure, no declarations. It was simpler than that. Lunches, long walks, late-night texts. But underneath the simplicity was something solid forming. The kind of bond that didn't rely on grand promises. Just quiet consistency. One Saturday, they went to a local flea market. Cynthia hadn't been in years. She used to go with her sister, all the time. It was their thing, digging through junk for treasures, laughing at bizarre furniture, drinking terrible coffee from plastic cups. Being there without her now felt like walking through a dream, missing half its colours. But Thomas made the colours come back. He didn't hover. He let her wander, stop at booths, touch old books and dusty jewelry. When she paused in front of a cracked mirror, staring into it like she was trying to see her old self, he came up behind her quietly and said, "You've got that look again." "What look?" "The one where you're visiting ghosts." She turned to him, surprised. Not by the words, by how right they felt. "I used to come here with my sister," she admitted. He didn't push. He just nodded. "Grief's weird," she added. "Sometimes I miss her laugh so much. It feels like losing her all over again." Thomas slid his hand into hers. It was a simple gesture, but it grounded her. "Maybe we can make a new memory here," he said, and they did. They found an old ceramic mug, painted with sunflowers. Bright, chipped, ugly in a charming way. Cynthia loved it. Thomas bought it for her without asking. She used it the next morning for coffee, and somehow it tasted better. That same week, William reached out again, this time through a mutual friend. He hadn't taken the box Cynthia dropped off. Said he didn't want to reopen wounds. The friend asked if she wanted it back. Cynthia didn't even hesitate. Tell him to throw it away. She didn't want reminders. She didn't want to keep pieces of a man who used her heart like it was a stepping stone. But Susan had other ideas. That Friday, Cynthia walked into her apartment and found the box. Yes, that box, sitting on her dining table. Susan grinned sheepishly from the kitchen. "Don't kill me. I picked it up. I had a feeling there might be something in there you forgot." Cynthia rolled her eyes but opened it. Charges, receipts, hoodie, more or less what she remembered. She was about to tape it back shut when she saw something under the hoodie, a thin black notebook. She pulled it out slowly. Inside were pages of William's scribbles, journal entries, notes, pieces of conversations. One page was dated months back, and as she read the opening line, her stomach tightened. "I think I love her, not because she saved me, but because she never asked for anything in return." Cynthia sat down. The words blurred for a moment. Susan hovered. "You okay?" She nodded. "Yeah, just didn't expect this." Most entries were vague. Some mentioned her. Some didn't. One page was half ripped, but the words still showed. Cynthia deserves more than a man still trying to be whole. She closed the notebook. It didn't change anything. It didn't make him right. But it gave her one small truth. Maybe he had known what she meant to him. Maybe he just didn't know how to love her the way she needed. And that was his flaw, not hers. Later, she tucked the notebook away. Not to reread, not to remember, just to close it. That night, as Thomas drove her home after dinner, she glanced at him in the dim glow of streetlights. The calm on his face, the ease of his laugh, the way he didn't carry expectations like baggage. It made her feel safe in a way William never did. And for the first time, she felt something new bubbling up, not just the absence of pain, but the presence of peace. Maybe this was what healing actually looked like. Spring came in full now, not just in the weather, but in Cynthia too. There were flowers blooming in her windowsill, fresh candles on her nightstand, and music playing in her apartment again. Not the moody, echoing kind she used to wrap herself in like a blanket during those long William-numbed nights, but lighter stuff, jazzy, warm, messy little songs that made her hum without realizing. She wasn't in love with Thomas, not yet, but she liked the space she had with him. With William, everything had felt like an emotional transaction. Give comfort, get affection. Give time, get validation. But with Thomas, there was no scoreboard, no running tally of who gave more. Just two people sharing whatever they had, whether it was a walk, a dumb joke, or silence. One evening, Thomas invited her to his place for dinner. Cynthia hesitated, not because she didn't want to go, but because she remembered the last time she let herself settle into someone else's space, how quickly she'd blended into William's world, thinking it meant belonging, but she went anyway. His apartment was nothing like William's. No polished bookshelves, pretending to be deep. No stage throw pillows. It was lived in. Plants he'd clearly tried to keep alive. Art that looked like it was picked because he liked it, not because it matched a color scheme. The kitchen smelled like garlic and lemon and effort. He cooked her pasta, burned the garlic bread a little, apologized way too much. I like it better like this, she teased, biting into the too crisp edge. Thomas grinned. Liar. They ate on his couch, watching something dumb on TV. She didn't even know what show it was. The food wasn't perfect. The couch was too soft. But the night felt right. When she got up to leave, he walked her to the door and kissed her cheek. Not a move, just a moment. Thanks for trusting me, he said. Cynthia smiled. Thanks for being safe. That night, she dreamed of her sister for the first time in months. Not the nightmare kind. Not the screaming tires and hospital halls, but a soft memory. Her sister laughing on their old porch, singing badly to a love song, daring Cynthia to dance with her. She woke up with tears on her face and didn't wipe them away. It didn't feel like falling apart. It felt like something coming back. The next day, she went to the cemetery. She hadn't been in over a year. She brought the sunflower mug, her favorite thing now, and left a single flower inside it, beside the grave. I'm okay, she whispered. I swear, she stayed longer than planned, just sitting, telling her sister things she'd never said out loud. About William. About how hard it had been to watch someone walk away with everything and act like it was nothing. About how guilty she'd felt for surviving, for loving again, for laughing. She talked until the wind picked up, and when she left, she didn't look back. On her way home, her phone buzzed. A message from a number she didn't have saved. You were the only person who ever really saw me. I'm sorry I didn't see you back. William. Cynthia stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. No anger, no drama, just clarity. She got home, took a long shower, and curled up on the couch with a book Thomas had lent her. Her phone buzzed again, this time. Susan. Dinner Friday. Girls only. You're overdue for wine and bad advice. Cynthia smiled. Only if you promise not to bring any more boxes. No boxes, just gossip. She laughed, tucked the phone away and settled deeper into the couch. No heartbreak, no invoice, no need for closure, just peace. Finally, Friday came fast, and so did the laughter. Cynthia sat across from Susan at their favorite spot, a cozy little tapas bar that smelled like grilled garlic and wine, and always played those old soul records that made you feel like you were in a different decade. The table was already littered with half-eaten dishes and empty glasses. The wine was good, the company better. Susan poured them both another glass and leaned in with a conspiratorial smirk. "Okay, spill. What's going on?" "With you and the tall one." Cynthia rolled her eyes, cheeks warm from the wine and the question. "Thomas?" "No, the other tall man who brings you hot chocolate and looks at you like you're made of gold." "Yes, Thomas." Cynthia toyed with her glass, smiling despite herself. "He's different. There's no game, no guessing what he means when he says something. He just shows up, says what he feels. It's unsettling." Susan blinked. "Unsettling." "In a good way," Cynthia laughed. "Like I keep expecting a trap, but there isn't one." Susan's grin softened. "You deserve that. After what's his name? You earned boring and honest." Cynthia raised her glass. To boring and honest. They clinked, and the conversation moved on. Work drama, mutual friends, questionable life choices, and the audacity of their high school exes still watching all their stories, like it meant something. But when Cynthia got home, she couldn't stop thinking about what Susan said did. She really believed she deserved something good, or was she still waiting for the other shoe to drop? Later that night, Thomas texted her. "Made too much soup. Want to help me fix that?" She stared at the message for a second, thinking about all the times William had texted her late. Not out of care, but convenience. She used to jump. Now she breathed first. "Only if you have those weird crackers I like." Already in the pantry. When she arrived at his place, he was already in pajamas, hair messy, socks mismatched. He looked like comfort itself. They ate the soup curled up on the couch, knees brushing. The silence between them felt soft, not heavy. No need to entertain, no need to impress. He turned to her after a while. "Can I ask you something?" Cynthia raised an eyebrow. "You just did." He smiled. "Okay, smartass. Can I ask another something?" "Proceed." "Do you believe in second love? Like, real, strong, start over kind of love?" The question hung there between them, like steam off a hot bowl. Cynthia didn't answer right away. She set her bowl down and folded her hands in her lap. "I used to think love was something that just happened to you," she said quietly. "Like lightning. You either got struck or you didn't. But now, I think it's more like planting something. You choose to water it. Let it grow. You can't do that when someone's using your hands to hold themselves up." Thomas didn't speak. He just watched her with that same look he always did. Steady, gentle, like nothing she said could scare him off. "I think I'm starting to believe in it," she added. He reached over and took her hand. "No rush, no pressure, just there." "I'm not rushing you," he said, "but I'm here, as long as you want me." And she believed him. Not because he said it perfectly, but because he said it without needing anything in return. Later that night, as she lay in bed, Cynthia pulled out the notebook she used to scribble in during her worst days. The pages were filled with heartbreak, guilt, confusion, her old self, trying to find a voice. She opened to a fresh page and wrote, "He used my love to heal, then left me. I didn't cry. I invoiced. And now I'm free." She closed the journal and placed it in the drawer. She didn't need it anymore. Not because she wasn't still healing, but because now, finally, she wasn't healing alone. A few weeks later, spring had fully arrived. The city streets buzzed with the kind of restless joy that comes when people remember. Life isn't just survival. Cafe patios were full. Kids yelled on sidewalks. Dogs pulled at leashes, and Cynthia, she felt like she could finally breathe with both lungs. She and Thomas were officially a thing now, though they never said the words out loud. They didn't need to. He held her hand like it was second nature. She kissed him like she wasn't afraid of falling anymore. They met each other's friends. They cooked dinner at each other's apartments. They bickered over dumb things, laughed, more often, and touched like they knew the world was watching, but didn't care. It wasn't perfect. Thomas forgot her coffee order one morning and brought her something she hated. She snapped at him over it, not because of the coffee, but because she woke up from a dream about William that left her shaky. Thomas didn't get defensive. He apologized, handed her his own drink, and kissed her forehead. "Bad dream?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Old ghosts." He didn't say get over it. He didn't say, "But I'm not him." He just said, "Okay, let me sit with you till they pass." And that was love, wasn't it? Not big declarations, not dramatic moments, just the willingness to sit with someone through their ghosts. One sunny Sunday, Cynthia walked through the same neighborhood where she'd once seen William with Susan. Hand in hand, carefree, she passed the park bench they'd sat on during one of their first dates. Back when she thought love was about being needed. It didn't sting this time. It didn't feel like salt in a wound. It just was. A moment, frozen in a life that no longer belonged to her. She sat on the bench now, with a coffee in one hand and a new notebook in the other. She hadn't journaled in a while, not because she didn't need it, but because she was living more than she was reflecting. But something about this day felt full circle. She opened to a fresh page. "To the woman I was before him, you gave more than you had. You thought love meant proving your worth, holding broken things together with your own body. You were wrong, but not weak. You were kind. You were learning. And now you are free. Don't regret how much you loved. Just remember how much it cost, and never go bankrupt again." She smiled and closed the book. A shadow fell across her lap, and she looked up to find Thomas standing there with a bag of croissants and a grin. "I figured you'd want the almond one," he said. "You remembered," she said, taking it from him. "See? I'm learning." He sat beside her, unwrapping his food. The park buzzed with life. Birds, kids, dogs, distant music. Cynthia leaned against his shoulder, eyes half closed, face tilted toward the sun. He glanced down at her notebook. "You, writing about me," she smirked. "Wouldn't you like to know?" "You better not invoice me for these croissants," he said, nudging her. She laughed. "You're lucky I retired from emotional accounting." They sat there, eating in silence. And for the first time in a long, long time, Cynthia didn't feel like she was surviving something. She felt like she was living, the kind of living that comes after you've cleaned the blood off your hands, stitched up your heart, and chosen to love again. Not because you need someone, but because you want them, and because they're willing to carry the weight with you, not place it all on your shoulders. William was somewhere out there, maybe healing, maybe repeating old patterns, maybe still searching for someone to fix what he refused to face in himself. That wasn't her story anymore. Hers was this: a woman who loved deeply, was used terribly, stood back up, and chose herself. Then love found her again, not in her weakness, but in her strength, and this time, she didn't cry. She smiled. The end.